All right, good morning, guys. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Jessica Reynolds. I'm the Director of the Office of Downtown Development at the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, and I am so excited. I am coming to you live from Moultrie, Georgia this morning, and with me I have Amy Johnson. She is the Downtown Economic Development and Public Relations Director here for the City of Moultrie. And, you know, the funny thing is, you know, webinar ideas and stuff like that come from a million different places, but Amy and I were here in Moultrie a couple months ago, maybe back in November, and DCA was in town and doing a downtown tour with their DCA board, and we had been working together on that, and we were just talking about the evolution of Moultrie and the program and everything like that. And Amy has been here 17 years, right? Maybe
about 21.
Oh, yeah. 21. Okay. But I'm not going to steal her thunder and like telling her story, but it was really interesting that Amy was talking to me about when she first came here, they were extremely events focused.
Oh, absolutely.
The board and everything. And for me, seeing all the progress and the stuff that's happened, especially, I would say, even the last handful of years, I was like, no. I mean, it really just kind of took me by surprise. And I was like, this is a story I think we have to tell. I think that we need to share. I think a lot of people can relate to this. And so, shortly after, I left, Tess and I reached out and we said, really, we would love to start off the year with you talking about this, because I just think this is so relatable to so many of our programs. And looking at how many people we have registered to participate today, I think, we were definitely validated by that. So with that being said, we're going to kick it off. I'm going to turn it over to Amy, and I'll be chiming in every now and then. But thank you for being here. All right, Amy.
Nervous with all these people.
No, it's gonna be great.
Well, hey everybody, I am Amy Johnson, and I am from Moultrie, but I went to college and moved away, and now I'm back. So my story is, I started off, I was in Valdosta going to school, and I started working with the Visitors Bureau and Valdosta, and started learning about tourism and a little bit of economic development. And then I was fortunate to take my first job with the city of Douglas, Georgia, as Main Street. So they really had a lot of movers and shakers in Douglas, and so I was very fortunate to learn from them and really got involved with Georgia Main Street and saw how successful the program is. And then after a couple of years in Douglas, I was fortunate enough to come back to home where I have raised my daughter and enjoy making an impact for the place that really has a place in my heart. But if you don't know where Moultrie is in South Georgia. We are about 60 miles north of Tallahassee, Florida. We're just, Thomasville is 30 miles south of us. Valdosta is 45 miles east of us. Tifton is 30 miles north of us, and Albany is 45 miles west of us. So we're kind of the center here in South Georgia, and I have a lot of great South Georgia Main Street folks that I can call on if I ever need, and I do call on them a lot. So anyway, that's where we are. And
what's your population, Amy?
Our city is around 15 to 16,000. Our county is like 48,000. Okay. So, but our town, if you've never been to Moultrie, we have a courthouse square, and surrounding our courthouse square is 9 blocks that we call our Main Street area. And if you haven't seen our lights, they come on Thanksgiving night, and we turn them off second week in January. So that's just a little bit of.
We just missed it.
Yeah, just missed it. So. That's me. If you don't know what I look like, actually, this is some of my Jim's presentation that we kind of tweaked a little bit. But I am the 3rd Main Street director that the city of Moultrie has had, so they have not had a lot of turnover, and I'm very fortunate with that. I think that's one reason we've been able to do a lot of things, because we have stability here, and so I do appreciate that. I'm a city employee. My budget is from the hotel motel tax. I work with our Merchants Association, our other organizations like the Downtown Development Authority, Downtown Moultrie Tomorrow Incorporated, and I sit as a liaison on the Historic Preservation Commission. Don't vote there. Tree Committee, Tourism, and our Countywide Development Authority. So as most of you do the same thing. So we're in charge of course, business development, downtown events, our website, social media, downtown promotions, our media within our city, government, business retention, and so much more, as you all know.
Yeah, Main Street is definitely not a one hat kind of job.
Absolutely not. So I was talking to Jessica earlier. We are very fortunate in Moultrie, Colquitt County. I believe one of the bases that any program needs is support from the elected officials. And we have very strong commitments from our Moultrie City Council and of course our mayor and also our county commissioners. And both boards recognize that Moultrie is, or downtown is, the center of our community. And I say this a lot, but downtown is like the heart of your body. If your heart's not pumping the way it should, the rest of your body is not going to function normally. So we use that a lot, and very thankful that we have a great group that we have showed what we're doing, and they trust us and they understand what we're doing and why.
Would you say that having the right support and leadership in place at that elected official city level has also allowed you guys to do that transition and to focus more on some of that economic development stuff? Because I'm sure, you know, being a Main Street manager myself at one point in time, there's always that city push of like, well, you need to do events and this is part of your job, and you know, this is a priority, and trying to help them see the other side of it, that we're more than just party planners, that we're economic developers.
Absolutely. And I will say it's been a growing process together. I think we've all grown together, learning from what we have done from events to where we are now. And our board, our council that's there now, I think we have a new elected person. We don't have that current picture, but you know, we've proved what we're doing, and I look forward to sharing with them our story, and they've expressed to me they want to be involved in all the things we do. So we're just very fortunate with our elected officials in our community, city and county. Can't say that enough, really. And this is just basically to give you all an overview. A lot of you have not been to Moultrie. Again, there's the courthouse. You can see it surrounded. We do a lot of events on our courthouse square. We have a small little amphitheater. We have about 14 to 18 events a year, and most of those are put on by us, but a lot of those are not. They're put on by other organizations. And you can just kind of see our sidewalks and just kind of get a glimpse if you've never been to Moultrie.
Feel for what it looks like.
But you're going to make a trip and come so you see it. This slide is talking about our boards, and I will say that boards are very important.
Yeah, and talk a little bit about, you know, how your board contributes to like y'all's focus and what your priorities are.
The photo on the right-hand side actually is one of our downtown merchant meetings. I will say that since Main Street started here in 1989, which I was a small child, I was not here then, but they have formed a Main Street Merchants Association. And over time, they might have had 3 that participated up until where they are now. And they have a very good group. There's a good leadership there, but they never lose focus. If they only have 5 at the meeting, they still meet. The next time they might have 15 or 20. So they never give up. And there's a lot of movers and shakers that understand how important, and they tell us all the time, we're very fortunate to have a Main Street program in our community to help us do these things and understand what we are as small businesses. The photo on the left, that is our Downtown Development Authority along with our Enhancement Committee. This is the group that we had a strategic planning session and we came up with pie in the sky ideas. which are now projects that we're doing, and they have raised almost $2 million. And that is something,
Incredible.
if you just said 8 years ago this was going to happen, I would have said, really? Okay. So it can be done. Moultrie is we're a small town, like you said, around 15,000 for the city population. We're an agriculturally based community. A lot of you've probably heard of the Sunbelt Ag Expo that we have every year that brings thousands of people. But we're not a metro area, so when we say we've raised $2 million, that's big for us.
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
exciting.
And we were talking, before we kind of all got started, and we were talking about the Merchants Association and the role that Main Street plays in that. Can you kind of like talk about that dynamic and like how it works for y'all?
Yes. When I first started, when I came back to Moultrie, it was specifically just Main Street. It seemed like all I was doing was events. I felt like that I was having events. That's all I was doing.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important that you go visit with your merchants and let them know who you are. So I was doing that, but I was having events. And so I'm like, I'm just an event planner. But what I know now, that had so much to do with where we are now. That was almost the building block, or it was the building block to where we are now. Our Merchants Association would always meet, and their part is to come up with events to help drive retail in their stores. And we'll show some of that in a minute. And when I have my big events like our Spring Fling Festival or Thanksgiving night, I always incorporate them into my event, whether it's putting their name on the sponsor information or listing them as being open or having a scavenger hunt in their store when we're having our event, etc. So we're really working on that. That's a growing thing that we're trying to do more, because the more your business cash registers ring, the happier they're going to be, and the more business you're going to be bringing to the town.
So would you say that there was an education shift that had to happen there? Because I mean, you and I both know you could do events that bring hundreds and thousands of people downtown, and that doesn't necessarily mean economic impact for the businesses. And so was there ever a conversation that had to happen, like, we can do events, but it really needs to, again, have those registers ring? Like, we need to focus on things that are going to, get people in, get them engaged, and that you can be a part of.
Yes, we basically said, okay, Merchants Association, you're to come up with ideas on things to do to get people into your store retail wise. What we do as a city, we do the events that are community events that we're going to do every year, and we will incorporate you, but do something that will help your organization, because there are some events that they say nobody comes into my store. Okay, well, let's try to figure that out. For example, this year for 2019, most of all of our events, we put musical entertainment up and down the sidewalks, not just on the courthouse square. We had to pay a little extra money, but it worked. People liked it. They liked the atmosphere. And so we continue to make changes, and it's still a learning process, but I sure do love the millennials coming in to open up businesses, because they really give a lot of input.
Yeah. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about a couple events that they do that are more that economic development focus. And I think that's also the shift. It's one of those things. It's not like tomorrow you're just going to stop doing events completely, and but it's what is the economic impact of the events we're doing, and how do we make sure that we translate that into sales and into help and benefit for the businesses.
Yeah, and I don't think you ever stop doing events. You keep doing them. But my point is, with all the events back in the day, I think that's what brought people downtown to make memories. They started seeing the businesses, they started to trust us, and now the people have grown up having come downtown to see the lights turn on. It's part of their memory, and now they bring their family back and they tell their friends, and etc. This is one of the retail events that our Merchants Association came up with. We do this every year. Of course, they do a lot of the work now. I'm very impressed with what they do now. Of course, we always help them and give them help with promotions, but they came up with no tricks, all treats. This promotion was, if you come into the store, I think you were able to get some type of discount or prize, and you had to, I think, wear something Halloweenish. But again, that's just one of those little retail things to bring people in.
Yeah. Versus just focusing on handing out candy at the door.
Yeah, we used to do that. We used to give out candy, and it became thousands of people, and our merchants couldn't keep enough candy. And
but not really translating to an economic impact.
It wasn't. It made the memories, it did, but it just became so large. Now what we do is this retail event, and our police station actually gives out candy at the police department in their downtown. So
cool.
They do kind of trunk or treat.
Yeah.
Of course, we have a Christmas parade. Most communities do, and we, of course, handle that through our office.
Now, y'all's lighting event and like Christmas stuff, it's a big deal. I mean, lots of people come. If April from Thomasville is on here, I'll give her a shout out. But I remember it was back in December, I was in Thomasville talking with April, and she said she remembers, being a kid and coming up to Moultrie and seeing the lights. And now that's a tradition she's shared and passed on with her kids, that they do that as well. And so do your businesses stay open later for stuff like that when y'all have this
Absolutely. Kind of our lights is a tradition in our community. They come on Thanksgiving night, but we have not always had an event.
Okay.
We started the event about probably 19 years ago, and the merchants saw that people were coming downtown to see the lights come on anyway, so they started opening. We had carriage rides. We had all kinds of things. Well, it becomes so popular, we couldn't have the carriage rides anymore because
there's no
room. Yeah. So now it's estimated we have about 15,000, but that's probably it's a really fun event. We have, of course, reindeer and Santa comes, but that really kicks off the holiday season. And we do have people from out of town, and if you haven't been, you need to make plans. This year, we were fortunate enough to have Southern Living come and do a video, and they released it. And of course, that was really special to us. And if you haven't seen that, it's called Hey Y'all with Ivy Odom. And that gives you a little impact, or not an impact, but it gives you a little vision into Moultrie and our Christmas season. Christmas in July was another retail event that the retailers, had sales during that week of Christmas in July. So they're on, I think they're a 5th year doing that, but it takes time to catch on. So you have to have people to be willing to continue, even if the first year doesn't work.
And I like the idea, like with all these events that we're talking about, especially like the Christmas in July and the no tricks or treat. I can't remember exactly what it was called, but like we're not saying don't do events. We're just saying make them work for you, make them work for the businesses, make them work in a way that is capturing that economic impact.
Right. This school staff appreciation night is a good example. This was a Merchants Association event. They wanted to open late from 5 to 8, and they invited all the teachers to come in, and they had special discounts.
Awesome.
Well, this one was in 2018. Well, they didn't get a lot to come in. They had some. So in 2019, they said, okay, well, let's send coupons. Let's make coupons. Let's send them to the schools. Let's ask the superintendent if we can deliver them to the schools. And we had like 4 or 5 pages of coupons, and they came in and used them. So that was much more effective. The stores didn't have to stay open late. They didn't have to pay staff for later. And so it worked out real well. And that was a retail event that put money into their pocket. We did the coupons for them, and they did pay. We had a printer to print them because there were so many, but we did put that together for them.
And I love that, because it's one of those things. It's like, okay, well, if it didn't turn out exactly what you want, there's maybe another way to do it. The evolution of stuff.
That's right.
We don't have to keep doing the same thing every year just because we've done it that way.
This is another example. Red, white, and blue. It was during the summertime, but just another example. We try to, like I said earlier, when we have our events, the city events, we try to incorporate the businesses. This was a character thing we did, and we tried to have it during the time when the stores were open during the day, not at night. But that's ever changing. Music of the Magnolias, probably the only musical event that we do where the stores don't stay open late, but it's become such a fixture to our community. We continue to have it. People come eat in the restaurants, and then they come out to the concert. Another merchant event driven activity. They did something on Valentine's Day, and of course everything they do, we basically do their advertising for them and their flyers for them, and help them out that way because they don't have paid staff.
But I like it that you're supporting something that is important to them. You know, it's not Main Street coming to the businesses saying, you need to do this. It's the business saying, this is what we want to do. Can you help? Like, we're committing to honoring this or staying open these hours or giving this out or offering this discount. And Main Street saying, yeah, we can support that. We can help with that. Because I think, you know, we have to make sure that as managers, we shift our mindset from being the dictators and telling people what is good for them and what they should be doing, and encouraging people to help themselves and be an active part of that solution.
Now, keep in mind, you know, these retail events are put together by them, or they come up, the merchants come up with it, but I'd like to say they always have 100% participation, but there's not 100% participation. You're going to have that in every town.
I was going to say that's being realistic.
I learned after a few years in Main Street, you can't make everybody happy. And
wait, what?
So I did learn that. I have to live with that. So, but they do have a good participation level, though. Just more ideas. They do sidewalk sales, or I should say we do sidewalk sales. And actually, during one of the sidewalk sales, we dressed up as the Easter Bunny in an little area, and we took our own pictures and posted them on Facebook for free, and it was just an added benefit. So little things like that you can add. This is our Thanksgiving night that you were talking about earlier. This is when we light up the town, and it's a fun night. We have the stilt walkers and just a neat activity. A lot of our people come from like Universal. They work at Universal or Disney that come to our stilt walkers and the piano guy. And so we try to add something every year, but we add something that's really big.
So we've talked, you know, a lot about events, and we've talked about kind of work, you know, the idea of working with merchants, making sure that we're checking in, you know, what's the impact, the economic impact of what we're doing, always kind of like checks and balances with that. It's not just about bringing people downtown. It's also about what are they going to do when they're there? What are they going to experience? Where are they going to eat? Where are they going to shop? And trying to translate that into sales. But again, it's a cooperation with the businesses because we can help get them here, but you know, I can't, you know, Jessica and Amy are not going to check them out in your store. Like, you're going to have to like open the door and be an active participant in that process.
Right. And appreciate the business and do your own advertising too.
Exactly. We can't be the end all for everything. So, you know, you've been here in Main Street, here in Moultrie for years. At what point would you say there was a shift between like, okay, we're doing this and we're making progress, but we can start doing economic development in these, like in the ideas of like bigger projects? Because I do believe that these retail experiences that are promotion based is economic development. It is, it's making an impact. But how do we shift to being able to do some of these other cooler projects that we're about to see and talk about?
Yeah, and when the events, I do have they have their own budget, and they have the budget from their membership, and I think they charge $75 now for a year. But I have a budget where I do a lot of advertising for downtown as a destination. I always tell them, I can't promote your business for you. That's something you have to plan to do yourself, but I can promote downtown as a destination.
I like that.
And so I think that helped us too. That has helped us because we do a lot regionally outside of the 100-mile area. And we just wanted to let people know who we were. But I think we started shifting about 6 years ago. I'd have to look back to be exact, but it all started with a strategic planning session. We've had them before.
Yeah.
But this time, Jenny Robbins
from EMC.
Our EMC was gracious enough to allow Jenny to come, and we had our planning session. And of course, she wanted the pie in the sky ideas. And then once we had really pie in the sky at the time, we thought. Once she had those, then everybody had to go and number them, what we thought our first, second, third, fourth, fifth, how we wanted to rate these things. So we ended up with these projects. And okay, we have these great projects pie in the sky, but will we actually ever do anything with them? These are not events. These are brick and mortar things. These things, this is going to cost a lot of money, and we don't have it. So that's when it started. We have he's actually rotated off and is on another board now. On our Downtown Development Authority, we had a bank president. And I will say that was one of the best things we could have ever done, because he said, if I'm going to sit on this committee, we're going to do something.
Yeah.
If we're not going to do anything, then I'm going to get off the committee. He said, what I will do, I will donate a piece of land to you. I will also donate money for you to renovate this piece of land, and let's make something out of it. So we were like, our mouths were open.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, and I'm sitting here thinking, this is fantastic. So, pocket parks have all, are the new thing, and you hear about them, passive parks, but we didn't have one. So we have a local guy that's a landscape architect, and he went to UGA and came back home like I did, and to raise his family. And we enlisted him to start working with us. And the picture you see on the left, that's the little area that was just a grass lot, a little blighted area that the bank owned. It's across the street from the bank. They donated it to us and donated the money, and we built that little pocket park. Now, that sidewalk was broken, cracked. There were utilities up above. The city said, since you're putting in this money, we're not going to make your park be ugly by these cracked sidewalks where people can fall and slip. We're going to fix these sidewalks, and we're going to put the utilities underground. Wow. So that left-hand picture was our first project. And when people saw that we were actually going to do the work and we could do it, they started believing, hey, this is happening. Yeah. This is going to happen.
Being able to show that progress and show success and get success under your belt and feel like empowered and that we can do it. And I think it's important, because a lot of people could be given property and money, and it doesn't mean they're going to be able to make it happen. So having it be part of the plan and having it be focused and intentional, that success builds more success.
Yeah. I'll never forget, his name is DeWitt Drew, and he's still here. And he doesn't like it. He doesn't want any kind of kudos. No, but I will say he helped make a big difference for us. The picture on the right hand side was the next project. We simply, I guess, let me back up and say, we have a Downtown Development Authority, we have a Merchants Association, and then we have a 501c3 organization. It's called Downtown Moultrie Tomorrow Incorporated. That is the group where the money is being raised. That's where it's going, Downtown Moultrie Incorporated. They, along with the DDA and the Merchants Association, knew we wanted to do all these projects. This photo on the right was just a blighted parking lot. It was bad. It was one of the first things you see when you come into downtown, when you're coming from the road that goes to Valdosta. So we had just the idea of planting some trees and let's fix up the back of the buildings, all for a facade grant. But the city and county got involved, and we ended up with so much more. No, it's on down the road where we show more pictures, but we'll see that in a little bit. But that's called Mule Barn Park, so that's a great addition. And those buildings are the backs of those buildings, and you can enter from the backs of those buildings as well. So
I think, here we want to illustrate, we talked before about your strategic planning session, and that was really an indicator for y'all, like, okay, we want to focus on something else. We want to make sure that events are not just necessarily our priority. We want to identify some stuff. And so I asked you to put together, what are some program goals that you guys are working on this year? And as you can see, it's all economic development stuff. The priority is projects, and we're going to be able to show them some of these projects, right, in a few minutes.
Right. These projects that are listed, with the exception of the fiber ring, they all came out of the strategic planning section.
And I can't, emphasize enough that it's so important to have these be a part of your plan, right? So that everybody's
Absolutely.
working on it together, that everybody's intentionally focused on it, and it's not one of those air quotes projects that you just work on sometimes.
Oh, it's an all-time thing. You have to
Yeah.
work on these projects, and we kind of reshifted our office on who works on what now, so that I can focus mostly on these projects and make sure that I don't miss anything. So anyway, yeah, it's exciting. This is the mule barn part we just talked about. It was the back of the buildings, and the city and county got involved. And every project we do, we have a big groundbreaking. Hey, this is happening, and right after that groundbreaking, we have an excavator there showing that it's starting to work.
Like right away.
Right away.
Like we don't wait to start working on it. We start on it immediately.
Because we don't want people to say, oh, they're never going to start. So Mule Barn Park, and of course, that's our mayor. We have him and the county involved in everything we do. That's important.
And what role does like promotions, air quotes promotions, play in like telling your story about like the progress of these projects and the evolution of them?
It's important to tell the story. We are ever changing and trying to do better at that every day, because all this is so new to us. We're trying to figure out how, hey, we're not promoting an event. We're not just promoting to come shop downtown. We're trying to showcase that we are enhancing our downtown. That's from a view.
So that's the same park. That's the aerial view of what it'll look like from above, and then that's construction started on it. And how much was the impact of this?
The project was about $250,000, and then the property owners, we offered them a facade grant, and most of them took it and did great things like painting and changing the water drainage thing. So we had to do a lot of drainage work too. But at the end, there we go. We made a big deal out of it. We invited everybody to come to the ribbon cutting, and the brick that was used for the seating area actually came from a building that used to be located on that block. So it's right next door to county offices. Of course, it's the courthouse, so people are always there eating lunch. We've added umbrellas since this picture.
Yeah, I think it's nice.
Dog area.
It's all the semantics of stuff, because Tara Bradshaw on our team would say when they had a big project going on downtown, we weren't building a parking lot, we were building a park that accommodated cars.
That's right.
And I think it's interesting because you guys could easily call this a parking lot, because yes, you do accommodate cars. There are places to park, but you call it Mule Barn Park, and there's grass, and there's places to sit, and there's places for your pets. But it still functions as a pedestrian space. It still functions to hold trash, trash receptacles. It still functions to, accommodate vehicles, but you don't refer to it as a parking lot.
No, and it's such an enhancement from what was there. And if you look on the bottom right-hand side, you can see the parking area. So you can put quite a few cars there. And right across the street, that green roof building, that's what we call our intermodal system. We actually have Greyhound has started coming back to Moultrie, downtown Moultrie. So that's actually the we call it the intermodal system, but it's where the Greyhound comes.
But it's almost become its own gateway.
It has. Yeah. When we have meetings, we welcome people there.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Just a beautiful building on the inside. Sportsman's Park is another project, and it has become a long project because several factors are included in this. This is a building, it's the white building there with a ladder. The Sportsman restaurant was an iconic restaurant in Moultrie. That's where all the Moultrie folks would go eat breakfast. They had pictures hanging on the wall of that was drawings of them, of the people that were there all the time. And anyway, as it closed and years later, it deteriorated, and basically the roof is falling in. So we secured funds to stabilize, and what we were going to do with that, meaning stabilize, is going to leave a lot of the facade, but we're going to make a nice walkthrough with vegetation that will connect it to the parking lot in the back.
Yeah.
So the building next to it is the red building.
And for all the preservation people out there, this isn't like y'all just tearing down something to
No.
create a pathway.
No,
I mean,
no.
this is one of those properties that's,
It's gone.
yeah, it's gone.
There's no interior walls. And so we said, if we don't do, that was another thing. We said, if we don't do something with these buildings
to stabilize it.
to stabilize, and I'll show you some more buildings in a minute, nobody else is. And so we have to do it. We have to take charge and do it. So the building next door, when we started doing these projects, when we did the Pocket Park, the Mule Barn Park, and we had a list of things, we started having people noticing, and they started buying buildings, and they still are. But the building, the red building, was purchased by a family, and they're putting a upscale restaurant there. But so now what we're doing now, they're going to do a major renovation, and we are too. So our structural engineers are getting together to try to work together to make sure that there isn't any issues when the major renovation happens. So we're hoping to start on that in a few months. But you see the rear of it on the right-hand side too. It's very blighted. The rear of it looks onto a parking lot, and I'll show you that in a minute. This is when we were doing a test to see what was under some of the things that were there, and we just did a picture when they took the awning down. All right, this parking lot, South Main parking lot.
So this will be the back of.
This is the back of the Sportsman, yeah. Blighted area again, and I wished I would have put a picture before they started working on it. Blighted area, very visual area, and we know that we have to look the part if we're going to act the part and get people to come here and visit with us and shop with us.
Yeah.
And so this is one of those enhancements where we're just enhancing not only parking, but safety, lighting, seating, vegetation, drainage, etc.
Yeah. And I think that's an important thing to hit on, that you know, the businesses have to play their role in being open and stuff like that. And, you know, we can help with facade grants to make them visually look appealing and support them in that process. But it's also the onus on us as a program and the city to make sure that we're continuing to invest in the infrastructure that makes up downtown, that creates you know, those corridors and those pedestrian, you know, walkways, and that, you know, enhances the alleyways, all those places that these folks are going to be walking to and from and parking in front of, to make sure that they're having the best quality experience possible.
Right. And, you know, the merchants, we have some really great merchants, and this is just another feather in the cap for being in a downtown where, you know, we do a lot of enhancements and encourage growth and development a lot. If you came to Moultrie right now, this is what you would see. They're working on that right now. We broke ground on January the 6th, and they're working on it right now.
Yeah. And it's not that the city doesn't invest in itself everywhere, but this kind of investment is what you're seeing happening downtown.
Yes. And people are noticing, and they're investing as well. So it's a domino effect.
Yeah.
Another thing that came out of the strategic planning session, and which I love the idea, but I never would have brought it up and didn't think of it. But it was brought up to build a downtown welcome center promotion area. So there was a vacant building, a large building, that corner building you see, it had out of town owners, and it was sitting vacant for years. So the 501c3 committee that I told you about, Downtown Moultrie Tomorrow, they purchased the property, and they have money for renovations. And right now what's happening is it's in the stages of, with the architect, they're working on the interior plans, and it will become our downtown offices, which I'm very excited about, public restrooms,
nice,
meeting space, and I think one of our IT department, I think, is going to go in there with us. But it's so exciting because it can be a promotional area. You know, our hospitals jumped on board to participate, and a lot of the area, other banks, and we'll have displays of the community and hopefully interactive displays. So this part's very exciting too.
Yeah, absolutely.
This rendering was completed by the Carl Vinson Institute, and this was how it could look. Not to say that we're going to do that mural, but
helping to sell the idea of it.
And once it is completed, then Downtown Moultrie Tomorrow will gift it to the city. I think I might have already said that. But the downtown fiber ring seems to be one of the project that gets a lot of attention.
I know.
A lot of
I was thinking
attention.
that.
And what the downtown fiber ring will be is actually fiber that'll be a ring around our 9-block area, the Main Street area. And once that ring is complete, we're going to put up security cameras, free Wi-Fi, and then our last thing will be to add speakers, so that if we wanted to play music, or if we were having an event on the square and a speaker, then everybody could hear it down the other area. So there's a lot of things we can do with that. So that right now, I think our IT guy told us that I think it might start in a couple of months.
Yeah.
So that's very exciting. And we're going to use that for tourism purposes too, probably put a camera on our website.
And I would say too, from an economic development standpoint, having that fiber ring is definitely going to encourage, any opportunity like for businesses to come here. I mean, it's like, okay, you've got this infrastructure already in place. I know that what I do is going to be able to tap into that.
Yes, very exciting. And now what we have now is some of the property and business owners are saying, hey, can I buy a camera to add to this so that I can make sure that my store is covered? So we're like, absolutely. We did do a USDA grant I think we were awarded, I know we were awarded $25,000 to help with this project from USDA. And of course, the other funds are coming from donations. I hate to start listing folks because I don't want to leave anybody out, but I know those are some of the main contributors there.
And I think that's an important thing to highlight, is that most of these like economic development projects that we're talking about, this is not one source of income from one place.
No.
It's layered approach. It's multiple partners. It's having those relationships. Again, going back to the idea of the board and the buy-in there.
Exactly, because Amy did not go to all of these people and say, will you donate? Will you donate? What it took, or what it's taking, because we're going to have to continue this, these board members have connections in different areas of the community. They had to sell that what we were doing was believable, and it was going to happen, and it was going to make a major impact on this community. And that's how we have raised the money we've raised, and it's from our boards.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. It's not just the manager doing it all. It's a team. Like you guys are a team working on.
I mean, I might help them write a letter or something, but it's them, and they can really pat themselves on the back for that too.
And I think too, when thinking about who's coming on the board, when someone rotates off, like making sure that you're being strategic about, their connections to the community, influence in the community. And I use influence in like a positive way, your ability to impact change,
Right.
And being able to bring those change agents on board, with what you're doing.
Absolutely. This slide is the former Belk Hudson building. If you've been to downtown Moultrie, this building sits on the square, and it was vacant for many, many years. It was actually owned by a foundation. The roof was falling in, and we talked them into donating it to the DDA. The DDA was able to take funds to stabilize it, put a new roof on it, and we found a developer who's Hal Carter, many of you know, and he's developing 8 loft apartments upstairs. So very exciting on that, and we'll be doing retail on the main floor. That's happening right now, by the way. If you ever want to come and go through it, just let me know. Community partners we talked about. These are some of the folks, when they donate money, we make sure we do a big check. We make a big to-do about it. The one on the left is an example of us starting to do these things. And this is Debbie Mott. She's a realtor here. Buildings are selling. So that's exciting.
And so, we've talked about a lot of the good stuff, but Amy and I were talking about this earlier, and I was kind of telling her that one of the things I noticed a difference between GEMS and classic communities is that sometimes classic level communities can be a little bit in denial about some of the challenges. And maybe it's because we're trying to prove ourselves at that level. Maybe it's because we're not realistic about what it is. Maybe we just don't have a full understanding if you're a new manager. But one of the things that I love about GEMS communities is when you talk to them, when you visit them, there's always great stuff to highlight and amazing projects that are happening, but they're very realistic about the current challenges. I think it's so interesting that whenever we've done our site visits for GEMS designations, that you know, Dollars to Donuts, we walk around and we look at 5, 6 amazing projects, and there's always a stop on the way where they say, well, this is one of our challenges. And they don't cover it up and they don't hide it. And they're like, this is what it is. This is how we're working on it, or this is the challenge that we're working on. Can you help us with it? But have a lot of like ownership and onus over that. Not everything is successful, not everything is working, that not everything is just a shiny penny, and that there's stuff going on behind the scenes. So why don't you just briefly talk to us about like some of the challenges that you continue to have as a program? So it's, you know, just we're being realistic about, you know,
and
things.
we really probably have a lot more than this, but this is just some of the ones that, you know, I think most Main Streets do is working with property owners to enhance their property. You know, there has to be money available, and whether our facade grant is sufficient enough. Ours is not but $1,500. It's a matching grant. So that's when you have to, you know, do the low interest loans and find incentives and other ways creative to help them. And then sometimes they're out of town owners, and sometimes the building is just so large it has to have a great sum of money to fix it. So a lot of obstacles. We have to continue raising money once our projects are completed. Our challenge is going to be to continue. We can't stop here. We have to continue to do another strategic planning session to go ahead and bring those other projects in so we can prepare and to continue to bring in money.
Yeah. So kind of making sure that you don't rest on your laurels, and you're trying to, you know, this has been excellent and we've been able to accomplish a lot, but what's the next phase look like? What is the next round?
And we're actually looking forward to DCA helping us with that next strategic planning session. So
they would love to.
Yeah. So having downtown open later on Saturdays, that's always been something that even the retailers bring up. Some of them open later, some of them don't. But, you know, we talk about events. We're building a new event, and it's kind of a reflection of what is known as First Fridays. We don't want to compete with First Fridays or football, so we're having second Saturdays. And the first one is March the 14th. So that is, the merchants will stay open late that night. Let's put it this way. Participating merchants will stay open late on that Saturday. And then connecting with potential business owners. How do we continue to find those folks that want to open small businesses? You know, just that.
And again, we talked about, you know, the importance of having the right board in place, having the right elected official support in place. You know, and again, just highlighting here that Amy alone cannot do this. This is Amy working with volunteers, partners, board members, elected officials, and everybody in between.
Yes, and I'll also say our city manager is on our board as a liaison like me. He's very active, and I mean, we have to have buy-in from everybody.
Yeah,
you have to have people to believe in you and believe what you're doing. So yes, without them, we wouldn't have the money. We wouldn't be doing those projects.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we don't have a slide for this, but there is one more program I wanted Amy to talk about that they are doing to work with businesses here in downtown Moultrie.
Well, when we started to focus largely on economic development and growing businesses and growing jobs, all too often we were hearing it's not easy to open a business here. You know, we need help maneuvering through all of these areas, and some of you might have the same problems. But what we did, we formed what we call EDGE, Encouraging Development and Growth Efficiently for New and Expanding Businesses. And we started just with the downtown businesses. If I knew there was a downtown business opening, we would ask them to come in, and we would sit around the table with anybody and everybody that had anything to do with them opening the business. I mean, we even have our people that handle the garbage, our police, our fire, people that turn on the lights, permits, even our HR director. So we have everybody that sits around the table, and we try to put them through the steps of what to do to open this business. And it does two things. It lets them know who we are, so they feel comfortable that they're not having to go everywhere. It's kind of like a one-stop shop. And number two, it lets our folks in the city know who these people are, what they're doing, and try to help them through the way. So we've been very successful with that. I think we're on our third year with that. And now we've opened up to anybody in the city. And it's basically where we're getting our participants now is really our community development department that handles the business license and the permits and everything. They're actually seeing those people first. And
when you talk about wanting to be economic development friendly, entrepreneur friendly, this is a way to do that. And all you're really giving is your time.
It's time.
You know, I mean, it's not like,
And I wish I had a picture of our brochure, but we did a brochure. And what we do, everybody that goes to that meeting, and there's a lot of us, we have our picture with all of our contact information. So those folks don't have to leave with a stack of business cards. They can leave with this paper, and they know who they're calling.
I love that you have the pictures, because as a person who's a visual person myself, like I will never remember names, but I will recognize your face. That's probably why y'all are like looking at, looking at me like, how come this person doesn't know me when you come up to me at a conference? And I'm like, I'm always trying to place the face before I can remember the name. Like that's how I connect and learn. So I love that you have contact information as well as the visuals. So you're like, I know I talked to this person, this is what they look like. Okay, this is what they are and who they are.
Yeah. So that's been done real well for us.
And then talk a little bit about like the role social media plays and y'all telling your story.
Yeah, just, like us, Downtown Moultrie GA, we also handle the City of Moultrie government page. We put a lot of downtown stuff on that too. Then we have our downtown website and Instagram.
And your merchants group is on Facebook as well?
We have a couple of different things, and we were talking about this earlier. It's when I first started Main Street, we didn't have all the Facebook and everything. So the only way of communication was you had to go see them. And that is so important. And I don't think we do enough of that today. But to bring up my point, we have a business and property owner private page where we can all talk amongst ourselves. The merchants have a shop downtown Moultrie page where only they can post. Anybody could be in this group, but only they can post their specials or what they want. So it's not us promoting them.
So the public could like join and see what's going on, but only the businesses themselves can post their promotions.
Yes, and it's called Shop Downtown Moultrie.
I like that.
So anyway, there's a lot of other things, but this just gives you a little snapshot of Moultrie, and we would, come for a visit. We'd love to see you. We're not that far away.
Well, thank you, Amy. If you guys have to go, we understand, but we appreciate y'all being here with us, and we will now see if we have some questions. So let's pull it up and see what's going on. Oh, wait, none of it recorded. No, I'm just kidding, Amy.
That might be good. The audio?
It's okay. Sometimes when people are streaming, the audio may come and go, but guys, we'll have it up on YouTube, and anything that you feel like you missed, you'll be able to check out later. Okay, so I got some people saying they got some questions coming. What does a typical merchant meeting look like? How is it structured?
I think it's important that the merchants actually handle their meeting. For example, they have their own president, vice president, and secretary. And they meet once a month, and they meet at night. It's usually the second Tuesday of the month, and they meet at different merchants' locations each month. Our role in my office is to help, first of all, we meet the week before their meeting with the exec committee, which is their president, vice president, and treasurer. And they come up with what they're going to talk about. They come up with the events, they propose this, they propose that. And then our office helps get the notice out to folks. We help them get the notice out. And then we attend the meeting, and a lot of times they'll call on us to help them, but
they're running the meeting.
Yes, it can't be Amy.
And they're doing it monthly?
They do it monthly. Okay. And every once in a while they'll skip a month, maybe July or something.
So with the fiber ring, how's that funding structured? Like, what's the budget look like? Do you know? Like, is this coming from hotel motel tax?
No, it's not. Most of all these projects are being completed by donated funds. The fiber ring actually now is out. The request for quote is out currently, and we don't know exactly what that's going to come in at. We have an idea, but the fiber ring and the cameras and the Wi-Fi, that's all going to be done by donated funds. That's not coming from my budget from hotel motel tax. No.
Okay. So with do you ever have, or do you now, or have you, ever had issues in the past with that rhetoric of downtown investment versus investment in the rest of the city or county or of Moultrie? Like, and how would you recommend someone navigate that?
I think that it's important to continue to educate and make sure elected officials in your community knows that downtown is the center of the community. That's where it starts. That's your heart. And again, if it doesn't pump, the rest of your body's not going to function correctly. You know, we never have 100% of everything, like we were talking about earlier. So you're always going to have something come up, but I think we navigate pretty well. That's one thing I will say about our community. Our citizens respect the fact and like the fact that we have a beautiful downtown, and we're trying to become even better and better ourselves. And we're not where we will continue to grow every day.
Yeah.
And better ourselves. We'll never be at an ending point where we need to stop enhancing. We'll always
this
do it.
Makes me think of like y'all with the medical college that has come into town, kind of like that this part of the community versus the rest of the community, and the role that it can play into bringing bigger industry and business in the general community, not just downtown on its own.
Yeah, we have a new, the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine has built a South Georgia campus, and it is in Moultrie, Colquitt County, and we love it because the kids, not kids, the students, a lot of them are not kids, but they love to live in our loft apartments. They love to go to the coffee shop, and so we're all in this together. It's not city versus county, and that's what's so great about our elected officials. We're all in it together. Everybody understands that.
So, I mean, you also talked a little bit about the structure of how y'all are. So kind of explain to us again the relationship of Main Street versus DDA versus this 501c3 versus the merchants organization.
Some communities that have the different organizations, you have to sit down and really think about it and get educated about it, because you could get confused real easily. But your DDA, you know what your structure is with your DDA. Our DDA doesn't have a lot of money. The money they do have is from issuing bonds to build like the post office and things on the repayment of that. But where our money is in that 501c3. That's where the donated funds have gone. And we have members. We do have some members of the 501c3 that are members of the DDA, so they can be informed.
So does Main Street head up that 501c3?
They have their own board of directors.
They have their own board.
Yes, okay. I am the secretary.
You're the secretary.
So of course we help them with that. But again, they're running the show.
And your board, is that one and the same with the Development Authority?
No, we have added members on the
Main Street
the 501c3.
Okay.
How did your group get funded by the buildings? The one that's going to be
So one of the questions was how did y'all get funded or get started with buying buildings or working on those projects?
That comes from the money. The building that was purchased for the Welcome Center came from donated funds. The Belk Hudson property that we showed you that the DDA owns, we actually were able to utilize funds from a revolving loan from DCA, gave us approval to use, that was able to stabilize that building because it was falling in. And after we stabilized it, we were able to get a developer for a long-term lease. So DCA was involved in that project. And they're also involved in the Sportsman, kind of the same thing with the Sportsman. We use some of that revolving loan money to stabilize it, not to redo it, but to stabilize it.
And I would say too, whenever you have viable projects that you're interested in, or you think that there might be potential opportunities out there, reach out to your regional rep, your DCA regional rep. If you don't know who that is, reach out to our office and we can connect you, so that way you can see what resources and opportunities are available. So Amy, before we move on to this next big question, I saw that, how do you, when you do these events and you have maybe a craft vendor or a certain type of vendor outside, how do you make it so that it's not contentious with someone inside having a retail business or a restaurant or something like that?
We only do that once a year, and that's our Spring Fling Festival. And we do have art and crafts, and they have to make it. We don't just let somebody come in and sell sunglasses or something that they can go to the mart and buy. They have to actually make it, and we do that once a year. And that's just been a tradition that we've had for many years.
All right. So good question for Amy. What form of marketing for your economic development and events works best? Obviously people are very involved through social media, but they like to find a different outlet. Are you using, what are you using? What are you taking advantage of? And I would say to me, Amy is kind of like the queen of tapping into different resources here. She's not just, you know.
I use TV, but that's changing. We used to get a great response from our North Florida market, but the TV's changing. It's all changing, and the newspaper's changing. And so we've just had to see. I'm doing a lot on social media. I've even tried the geofencing. I do a lot of boosting, and I boost it in like places a long way away from here, like Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah.
So I'm doing a lot of that.
And I would say too that it's really important to know your market, to know your target audience, to know the age of your target audience, because that's going to change. More boomers and the greater, the greatest generation, they're going to probably get their news media more from traditional sources. Whereas if you're really targeting young millennials, it's all online engagement, newer families, maybe a mixture of both. But we like to say you don't run one ad one time and expect everybody to see it. You really have to have a diverse marketing and communications plan. But one of the things Amy didn't talk about is even like with their welcome center that they're working on, they want to have a place for media to be able to come and set up. And I think that's so important, realizing the importance of media and making your area media friendly. So
yeah, we have a good relationship with our reporters in the area, and we invite them to our office. Hey, if you need to do editing, use our office. But when we get that new building, we'll have like a specific office they can go in and use. And same thing with Small Business Development Center. We want them to come over and be able to utilize that if they need it.
They need to charge something or write something or just set up shop for a few minutes, or
and it's all about relationships too.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see.
Goodness, there's 6.
I know.
Well, I was nervous, but this actually turned out fun.
I know.
I enjoyed.
One of them is, okay, you have raised about $2 million. Woohoo! How? Just from solicitation and sponsorships or other sources of income? Do you have tangible fundraising materials to aid in your efforts?
It would be easier if we did have material, but those monies have come from relationships from people on the board going to other banks, writing letters, going to other committees or trusts in the community. So I would say it's from relationships built by board members.
Yeah, but also going back to like that strategic plan.
Oh yeah.
You know,
we use that.
Everybody's talking about the same thing. Everybody's working on the same thing. Everybody's working on it together. It's kind of like the Danny Bivens likes to mention the stove, Everybody knows that when I talk about a stove, I'm talking about a Viking stove that's red with like these really fancy knobs on it. It's gas. It's got 8 burners. Like we're all talking about the same thing, working on the same project.
Yeah.
Because realistically, we're not gonna just go out and be like, hey, give me money and I would like to go do something with it. Like you got to have some focus and some intention.
You have to have a plan, and you have to show it, and you have to have credibility, and that's where your board comes in.
To be able to help sell that vision and explain it. And
and when you have your elected officials on board, your city manager, your county administrator, our county administrator comes to our meetings. I mean, you have to have them all involved. They have to know what's going on. Now, are we the expert at that? I'm not going to say we are, but we do realize that and try. I see things every day that we need to do better at, and it's all a learning process. And
we got a clarification question. Which board you mentioned is the designated Main Street board? So, is your
DDA?
The DDA?
Yeah. We had something called a Main Street board when I came back to Moultrie. It was the same people as the DDA, and those people couldn't keep coming to different meetings, so we just had the DDA named as the designated.
So your DDA also serves as your Main Street board, but then you have the 501c3, which does have some difference on it.
Yeah, they're a private they're a private
nonprofit.
Nonprofit.
With the 501c3 is a part of the city audits. I'm assuming with that conversation, it's a separate.
Yeah, they're private. They do their own taxes. They have their own accounting firm that does their taxes for them.
Did you use DDRLF from the state to stabilize the building or local revolving loan funds?
It was local revolving loan funds that the city had, and it was excess money. And we asked DCA, could we use that? And they said yes. Of course, it was more than that. It was letters and things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Brock Smith and those folks were really
helpful. And usually typically that works as like some kind of grant between DCA to the local government for a certain project, and then as that money gets paid back, it can be then reinvested in the community. And this is something that had happened over time, and they had the funds, but it's also one of those, if you don't use it, you lose it. Right. And so DCA was like, from the perspective, you have to reinvest this money or it needs to come back to us. Yeah. And this is where those partnerships come in with, okay, we can help stabilize this and use these funds in this way, but we need an investor, to help make the project happen. Tell us about Second Saturday, open container, how you monitor that. Oh, Christy, you just hit the nail on the head. We were talking about this a little bit earlier, offline.
We're adding this event, and we've looked at other communities that have the alcohol ordinance allowing you to walk around during the event with alcohol. Right now, you cannot do that in Moultrie. We've looked at Thomasville, and I think Sylvester, and I think Bainbridge, the other towns that do it. So we have had our first and second reading of the ordinance, and the third reading will be in 2 weeks. If it passes, which we think it will, there's a group pushing it, a group of locals, citizens, then our first time they'll be able to do that is March the 14th. We will buy armbands and cups and make the restaurant sign contracts in order to participate. I'll let you know how it goes because we expect great things, but we'll let you know how it goes, or come visit.
Yeah, Carly, no payback. All right, last question we'll do. Amy, do you suggest combining Main Street Board and the DDA board?
I can't say. I mean, it worked here.
Yeah.
I don't know about your community.
And I think that's the important distinction. Yeah. It works for y'all.
If you ever deal with Dan McCrae, or if you ever go to his classes, if you ask him a question, a lot of times he'll say, it depends. So it depends.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's one of those things that it works really well in some places, and in other places it hasn't. And I think that the nice thing about the Main Street approach is that we're designed to be flexible enough to make it work for you and your community. And so that's one of those things. I think that's where you take your temperature annually and say, is it working? Are we doing the best we can with what we have, or do we need to reevaluate?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you guys. We appreciate y'all being here, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. Thank you.